It was a typical day, or so I thought. I pulled into the diner, looking forward to a quick bite, but what happened next still has me shaken. As I stepped out of my truck, a man in a dark uniform walked up. At first, I didn't think much of it, until he slammed my truck door shut without saying a word. I was stunned. No warning, no apology, just a quick, aggressive action that made my blood boil. But here's where it gets crazy. As I stood there, trying to process what had just happened, I noticed something I hadn't before. A group of people in the booth behind him, quiet, unassuming, weren't just any ordinary patrons. They were dressed like regular folks, but I quickly realized they were a team of SWAT officers, sitting just a few feet away, overhearing everything. The tension in the room shifted. I could feel the weight of the situation hanging in the air. What was about to happen? Would this escalate further, or was there something even bigger at play here that I hadn't noticed yet? Stick around, because what unfolded next was nothing short of jaw-dropping. You won't believe what happened next. I stood frozen for a moment, my mind racing. Who was this guy in the uniform, and why was he so aggressive? He wasn't wearing a badge, no name tag, just a stern look and a posture that screamed authority. As I glanced around, I noticed that the diner, normally bustling with chatter and the clatter of plates, had suddenly gone eerily quiet. People were glancing over, trying not to look too obvious, but I could tell they were watching. It felt like the whole room was holding its breath. The man didn't say anything at first, just stared at me, as if waiting for me to react. I was already on edge, frustrated, confused, but also kind of terrified. Who does that? Who slams someone's door like that without even a word? I started to open my mouth, but before I could say anything, one of the officers from the booth behind the man stood up. He wasn't in full SWAT gear, but the way he moved, calm, deliberate, made it clear he was someone who was used to being in control. The guy in front of me didn't flinch, but I saw his posture shift just slightly. That's when I realized this wasn't just some random encounter. Something was happening here, something much bigger than me. I could feel the heat building, but I had no idea where it was headed. My heart was pounding in my chest as I glanced at the man in front of me, and then quickly back at the group of officers in the booth. The whole situation was starting to feel off, like there was an invisible thread connecting me to them, and I couldn't figure out why. The officer who'd stood up from the booths slowly made his way toward me, his eyes scanning the room, the air thick with the kind of tension you only feel in movies. He was deliberate, almost like he knew something I didn't. The man who'd slammed my truck door, his eyes were narrowed now, more focused. The casual aggression from earlier had turned into something colder, something calculated. I couldn't help but wonder. Was he just some angry HOA officer, or was there more to him? Why had he acted like that, in front of all these people, with SWAT officers just a few feet away? Before I could even open my mouth to confront him, the officer finally spoke. "You might want to take a seat." His voice was low, commanding, but also controlled. It wasn't just a warning, it was a statement. I couldn't understand what was going on. Had I stumbled into something much darker? The way the officers were looking at me, the way the whole diner felt like a stage, and I was the unwitting star in some twisted play, it all had me questioning everything. Was I the one in the wrong, or was I being caught up in something I couldn't even begin to understand? The officer who had spoken to me gave a quick nod to the man who'd slammed my door. The silence that followed was deafening. I felt like I was about to be dragged into something I had no control over, and I didn't know whether to stand my ground or just walk out of the diner and never look back. But something told me that leaving now wasn't an option anymore. Whatever was happening here, it was only just beginning. The officer's words hung in the air, and for a second, I thought I might be dreaming. I glanced at the man who'd slammed my door again. He stood still, watching me like I was some kind of puzzle he was trying to figure out. I could feel the weight of his gaze, and I hated how it made me feel small. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but something was keeping me frozen in place. The SWAT officer, now standing behind the man, took a slow step toward me. His eyes were sharp, focused, No warmth, no expression. It was as if I had become nothing more than a pawn on some unseen chessboard, and the whole room seemed to close in around me. My breath felt shallow. Was I supposed to sit down? What did that even mean? Was this some kind of trap? My mind raced, but no answers came. Just as I opened my mouth to say something, the man who'd slammed my door made a sharp motion with his hand, signaling to the officer behind him. I couldn't help but notice how synchronized their movements were, like they had rehearsed this exact moment. I was being watched. Every single person in that diner, no matter how normal they looked, had their eyes on me now. I felt it. I couldn't escape that feeling. "Sit," the officer repeated, his voice a little louder this time, his tone carrying more weight, more authority. I didn't know if it was a command, a warning, or something else entirely. I had no choice but to sit. The booth next to me, where the SWAT team had been sitting so quietly moments ago, now seemed more like a waiting room for something that was about to unfold. I could feel the tension in every inch of my body. Something was coming, something big, and I had no idea if I was ready for it. Suddenly, the door to the diner opened, the bell above it jingling, and in walked a man in a suit. His arrival shifted the entire atmosphere in the room. He wasn't like the rest of the people here. His presence was different, more commanding. He didn't glance around at anyone. His eyes went straight to me. There was something in them, something unsettling. He didn't need to say a word. I could feel the storm on the horizon, and I wasn't sure if I could weather it. The man in the suit didn't stop at the door. He walked straight toward my booth, his eyes locked on mine with an intensity I couldn't shake. There was no greeting, no pleasantries, just an air of urgency that felt almost suffocating. His footsteps were deliberate, controlled. I could feel the eyes of everyone in the diner on me, and it felt like the walls were closing in. When he reached the booth, he didn't sit. Instead, he leaned in slightly, his face just inches from mine. The air between us felt thick, like something was about to snap. I didn't dare speak. I wasn't sure I could. I wanted to know who this man was, why he was here, and how he was tied to everything that had been happening. But I wasn't ready for what he said next. "You're in the wrong place," he whispered, his voice low, almost conspiratorial. I felt a chill run down my spine. I tried to process his words, but before I could respond, the man in the uniform, the one who had slammed my truck door, moved quickly, stepping closer with an intensity that matched the suit guy's. My pulse raced, and I could feel the sweat beginning to bead on my forehead. This wasn't just a random encounter. It wasn't just some misunderstanding. I was caught in something bigger than I could ever have imagined. The suit guy's eyes flicked toward the officers behind me, the ones in the booth, before returning to me. There was something unspoken there, some kind of silent agreement. I wasn't sure if it was a threat, a warning, or a sign that the game was about to change, but whatever it was enough to make my heart pound in my chest. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my nerves, but my hands were shaking. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I could feel the tension tightening like a noose around my neck. The stakes had just been raised in ways I couldn't even begin to understand. The man in the suit straightened up, but didn't answer. He just gave me a small, almost imperceptible nod. It was like he was giving some kind of signal, like this moment was preordained. As he turned and walked away, I caught a glimpse of something in his pocket. A badge. A different kind of badge. And I realized, with a shock, that I wasn't the only one here who had been playing a part in something much bigger than myself. I sat there, staring after the man in the suit, trying to wrap my head around what had just happened. My mind was racing, piecing together fragments of clues, but nothing made sense. What was the connection between the angry HOA officer, the SWAT team, and the mysterious man with the badge? And why was I the one caught in the middle? Just when I thought I might lose my grip on the whole situation, the door to the diner slammed open again. This time, it wasn't just any ordinary person who walked in. It was a woman in tactical gear, moving with a kind of urgency that instantly got everyone's attention. Her eyes scanned the room, sharp, calculating. I could feel the tension shift as she crossed the diner floor, heading straight toward me. My stomach dropped as she stood in front of me, her gaze piercing. "We need to talk," she said, her voice hard, but not unfriendly.